Hello and welcome to this session on smart cities. My name is Hidde. I'm a student at the University of Twente, and in the upcoming 60 minutes, we will discuss smart cities. We'll discuss the challenges, the advantages, and what all the possibilities are to get you thinking about the matter. Joining me are 4 different experts to talk about this subject. And please know that you can always ask your questions in the chat, and they will be here to answer them. We're using our experts that are here. But first, let me introduce them. Lieke Kiekebos, the first guest who is representing the province of Overijssel and is a specialist in urban areas. Michiel Floren, who is lecturer in the region development of the University of Applied Sciences and Saxion. Joining us via a live stream is Nicole Workel. She is a local business owner and is actively involved with moving businesses to online platforms. And a 4th guest, which I won't introduce just yet because he will introduce himself in the first video. Moving to our first guest, Lieke. Yes. You're working as an urban area specialist at the province of Overijssel. What does this mean? What are you doing there?
Well, there's a lot of different things that I do, but the reason I'm here today is because I also work for the program that's called the Stadsbeweging, City Movement. Via that program, we work together with partners in our city centers in Overijssel to make the city centers more vibrant, more alive, and future-proof.
So that's exactly in line of smart cities and the future of cities in general.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I look forward to talking to you about that. Another guest live here is Michiel. You're a lecturer. What does it mean to be a lecturer?
First of all, it's an honor to participate in this Create Tomorrow happening. A lecturer is doing practical research, applied research, with the research group of regional development at Saxion University. In the triangle of innovative technology, business development and dynamics in society, we act on the scale of cities and regions. It could be retail, it could be business development in common, it could be all kinds of aspects within this triangle. So Create Tomorrow is an exciting team in which developments and new technologies could be banded together.
So you're full-time working on what people are now doing for a few days at Create Tomorrow.
Yes.
It is your job,
yes,
it is your life.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Must be inspiring. So now let's first move on to the different kind of topics that we'll discuss in this session. We've divided the subject of smart cities up into 3 different topics. And let's first start off with topic number 1. So let's introduce our guest that sadly can't be physically present at the session. He decided to meet up before at the campus of the University of Twente. Tom Kikkert, nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, could you introduce yourself and especially what you're an expert on, what your field of expertise is that you're going to share here?
So my name is Tom Kikkert. I'm working in the world of retail. And it's my work to help bigger brands and bigger retailers with the future of the physical place. We're talking a lot about the internet, but I believe the physical place is maybe the most important place of retail. So I'm helping great companies with the future of the physical place.
So finding that balance between physical and online stores.
Exactly.
Really interesting. And then it's also the honor for you to start on the first part of this segment, which is specifically about that future of stores, because we've now seen it also in the COVID period that there is this fine line between websites and physical stores where you buy your products. What do you think that the concept of a store is going to look like? Is it going to be a bigger showroom for an actual web store? Or are you going to order your things via a website, but physically see them in a store? What's your perspective on that?
I believe that we have 2 systems for making decisions. We have a rational part of our brain that makes very irrational decisions. That's looking for price, that's looking for discount, that's looking for the biggest assortment. But I believe that the biggest part of a decision-making process is emotional. 95% of our decisions we're making based on emotion. So the best place to connect with a consumer based on emotion will always be a physical place, will be a place where you can touch every sentence of the consumer. So when you are a filmmaker, that will be the cinema. When you are making musicals, it will be the theater. And when you have a brand like Nike or Adidas, it will be the physical store where you can tell your story and the story behind your brand.
So in your opinion, it's more than just the transaction itself between I'm giving you money, you're going to give me a product in return. It's about the entire experience about that.
Exactly. We are too much focused in the retail on selling products. But I believe the future of retail is not about selling products. It's about connection based on emotion. Because if you are connecting based on emotion, consumers are not looking for the lowest price, are not looking for the biggest assortment, but they want to feel the connection with that brand or retailer. And if they feel that retailer, they will be a kind of fan of your company. So I think that will be the future of retail.
And what will that then do with the concept of a store? Because you then still have the products, you still have the stores. Will they ever change? Will it always stay the same as it is right now? Or is there going to be some kind of change? Is the experience going to be sort of an amusement park setting?
Now, right now, we see a lot of boundaries between sectors. Something is a retailer, something is a restaurant, something is a hotel, something is a cinema. But I believe when you want to connect with a consumer based on emotion, we have to take away all the boundaries and we have to create, we have to center just the experience. So something can be a cinema, but also sell shoes, also have a part of a restaurant in it. So we have to create a kind of immersive experience where all gets to one.
So we're hearing it, an immersive experience where all gets to one. So no more individual stores, but we're all going to combine this. Michiel, first moving to you. Do you agree with this vision?
I agree, yes. When talking about cities, I talk about the now, the how, and the wow. The now is the identity, the place itself, physical, hardware, software, hardware. The wow is the meaning of the place for the visitor, for the customer. And now how can we reach the visitor? How can we fulfill dreams and attractions and meetings? Because the city is not only transactions, it's from place to buy to place to be. That's exactly what Tom told us. On the other hand, emotion, well, we call it blended retail. Online and offline combined with all kinds of technologies, emerging technologies, gives a future which is exciting. On the other hand, the planning at home to decide which location will I visit, what can I expect, I need some shoes or I need some clothes or something else. It's partly a very rational decision and not only emotional.
Yeah, you want to find a store with the lowest price, you want to find the shoe that you're looking for, of course you're thinking about that.
Or meeting people you like, so all kind of flocks and blocks and video marketing could be part of this attraction. So before, during and after the visit of the city, it's a combination of online, offline and rational with emotional. So the expression it's 95% emotional could be a little bit nuancing.
Okay, but it means that we're already in that transition. Yeah. It's not only talking about the future of smart cities, it means that we are already living in that world of a smart city. Can you also see that it has done something with what a city looks like or how a city behaves, also separate of COVID, of course, in the last few years?
Yeah, well, maybe COVID has been some sort of a pressure cook situation for this to develop even more. The things that we see in the city centers in Overijssel is exactly this. And how you see this is, for example, a lot of cities think about their city center as a place with an identity. So they think about what is it that makes us special. And it's marketing maybe, but it's also emotional. It's thinking about the city center as a place to be. And how you can make those elements even stronger. Me personally, I'm an anthropologist. My background is that I'm an anthropologist. So I'm also very interested in identity and identity of people. Mm-hmm. And I think that city centers also play an important part in how you, it's a part of your identity. So I think it's becoming more and more important how the city center feels yeah, we see that happening.
I can then also see that there is now that cities are creating their own identity. That some cities are focusing more on the younger visitor, and some cities focusing on the older visitor. Or
Yeah.
are there different kinds of identities?
Yeah.
I'm still new to the subject.
Yeah, well, maybe they're not so much creating the identity, but finding it and owning up to it. There's, for example, one village that comes to mind is Weihe, which is a small village in the province, and they've been thinking about their DNA. They call it their DNA, and they're focusing on a very personal feel of the city center and the things that they do. The things that entrepreneurs do, but also in spatial planning, they focus on that DNA. So in COVID times, for example, when they were hanging up the Christmas lights, they chose to hang hearts in the central tree in the city center. So the choices they make from entrepreneurs, but also from the municipality, policy-wise, spatial planning-wise, it's all connected to that DNA. So they're not, I don't think they're creating it, but they're finding it.
And
Yeah.
they're discovering what their DNA is.
Yeah.
And I can hear Michiel nodding and also recognizing this example. Do you know the example of this specific town?
Yes.
And
Weihe is beautiful, and its identity close to the IJssel River. So they connect the area, not only the city, the little city itself, but also the surrounding. So that's a beautiful way of attracting people, give a competitive advantage. We have a different DNA than another located city like Olst or Zwolle or Deventer, all cities in Overijssel. So that's very interesting. On the other hand, create more about smart cities is concerning about cities, spaces of flow of people, flow of money.
Sorry to interrupt you about that, but a little tip of what we're going to discuss afterwards is about the culture and the behavior of a city in general. So let's more stick to that specific culture of one specific store,
Yeah.
how one store is changing, and also the concept of shopping is changing based on this.
Yeah, okay. Well, we see in our research not only the big retailers where Tom's talking about, but also small and medium enterprises, which is dominant in the retail sector, also in Overijssel, that they see for emerging technologies, how can we reach this experience and this hunting for other people experiences, not only buy, but meet, greet, find yourself, identify with other people, with the surrounding. And when shops are successful in reaching this ambition, this urge for other people, this meeting ground, the meet and greet, well, then the experience could be very enthusiastic and empower the decision to get a transaction. At the end, it's a value-driven retail, and the value is economic, social, cultural, meeting other people. So smart cities is not only the retailer itself, but also the meeting where people like to have, for instance, inclusivity. Or loneliness, two main big problems in society. A shop could also provide space for people to meet each other, to cross over different cultures. So this shop owner is not only blurring with food and drinks and clothes and all kind of other things, but also give a podium to other people and other minds and other voices. That would be fantastic.
Can I maybe add to that?
Yeah, of course.
Last week, because I'm thinking about a meeting I had last week with centrum managers. We have a lot of centrum managers in Overijssel. Those are people that are like managing the city center and connecting all the people that are present there. And we were talking about the marketplace and the social value also of the marketplace, and the fact that most of the time the marketplace and retail are not really working together in making a city center. Yeah, we are starting to see that topic too, that the social value of the marketplace and the working together of those two types of retailers.
Yep, perhaps moving a bit to the past, because back in the days, all the way back, even when I wasn't born yet, going to the hairdresser was some kind of experience. You would meet up with people living in your neighborhood, you would get a drink, a cup of coffee, you would even stay at the hairdresser for a longer time if necessary. You could even ask the hairdresser to buy some stuff for you while you were getting your permanent curls into your hair.
You used to do that?
No, I wouldn't do it. But we're now moving to like a new age where we're getting back to that way of feeling, having an experience, whilst having like a product, service, you name it.
Yeah. It's also about storytelling, about the place, the history itself. So looking in the now, backwards, into why is the place it is, and what could be interesting and meaning-making for the future. And this COVID disruption disturbs this meeting. There were abandoned parts of the city. Lockdown prevent to open your shop. So you had to find your visitor, your client, by online ways of attracting and have business. It's business driven, it's value driven. So it's more than only money making. But on the other hand, now with this coming up and start up like the boot camp where the city is new arising, how can we learn from this online disrupting, and how can we find out new horizons for the city where meeting in the shop, nearby the shop, in the street where the shops are cooperating. So I'm an enormous fan of not only thinking about experience in the shop, but also in this street, in the city center.
So once again, what the city center of the future will look like? Don't get too much to that subject.
Yeah,
We're going to discuss it next.
But it is connected. It is the shop and its surrounding where people walk. And I like this thinking about walking in action instead of sitting on a chair with your window screen and online talking only.
Moving on, because I just heard in my earpiece that we have a question from somebody who's watching. So let's move over to that specific question and hear what they have to ask for us.
Hi, everybody. I have a question from one of our listeners. You're talking about retail and shopping experiences. How much influence do you think should cities have over their own microeconomies?
Oh, that's a really good question. Which one of you is eager enough to answer it?
I can start, and
Fire
maybe you
away.
can follow. I work for the government, and we have policies surrounding spatial planning. So that's where city centers have an impact. But there are limits to that, because there are also European laws that prevent city centers from actively having an influence on the economy to protect the free market. So you have some, for example, in Overijssel and in the whole of the Netherlands, there are some differences, but we have a general laws that keep retail from settling outside of city centers. Only, for example, big companies like IKEA, for example, they get a permission to be out to settle outside of a city center, but most retail has to be inside of that. So I think that's the biggest way in which city centers have an impact on that, on their local economy.
Do you have anything new to add to that?
Yes, the question is also addressing microeconomics. So that's starting with somebody who wants to deliver something new, so a startup. And existing retailers could cooperate in trying to have concept stores, pop-up stores, new ways of reaching your audience, the visitor, the client, and giving space and room for new ideas. So our education route of entrepreneurship and retail management, many students want to have their own company, or their parents had a company and they want to have this company in future time. So they are looking for chances, opportunities, value creation, testing. So this testing environment could be very interesting for existing retailers and new retailers in a kind of experience rooms, locations where you can meet on a different area, different atmosphere, perhaps 4D experiences, smell, noise, all kind of multi-sensory aspects, which provide an extra experience and could be money-making, could help a startup scale up, stay up, and become a bigger company.
So once again, that experience and also expanding the experiences that are possible is really important. Thank you for the question, but we sadly now we need to move on to the next segment, which also means that we will now move over to Nicole. Nicole, nice of you to be joining us here digitally. You're joining us also on behalf of a local business that is here in the city of Enschede, Bertus Workel, a really specialized store that I've also visited to buy some creative goods. And Nicole has informed us that she prefers to speak in Dutch, which make it a bit more complex because now I'll do some talking with Nicole in Dutch, and I'll try to summarize that in English to tell you what we talked about if you don't understand Dutch. So it's going to be a challenge.
Ja. Ik ga het in het Nederlands doen en ik vul in het Engels aan.
Super. Nicole, fijn dat je er bent. Fijn dat je mee wil praten hierover. Jij bent natuurlijk de eigenaar van een heel erg specifieke, gespecialiseerde winkel. Die heel veel specifieke onderwerpen verkoopt. Zou je misschien eerst nog even kunnen uitleggen wat Bertus Workel precies is voor winkel?
Ja. Bertus Workel is in 1969 gestart door mijn schoonouders als een feestwinkel. Carnaval gloreerde destijds in die jaren en dat was er niet. Dus dat was de nichemarkt en dat was het begin van onze winkel. Alleen ben je ondernemer in hart en nieren op het moment dat je meebeweegt met de markt. Dat hebben we dus ook gedaan. De afgelopen jaren is er erg veel veranderd. Is carnaval eigenlijk op de achtergrond komen te staan in onze winkel. We verkopen nog wel feestproducten, feestkleding. Alles voor de student die zin heeft in een goed feestje. Maar daar is heel erg veel creatief en teken- en schildermateriaal bijgekomen. En dat is denk ik ook de kracht van onze winkel. Beweeg mee met wat de markt wil. En ik denk dat dat ook het succes is. En de reden waarom wij al zo lang bestaan.
Dus heel duidelijk. En dat maakt dit onderwerp natuurlijk ook heel erg interessant voor jullie. Want dat betekent dat je meebeweegt met dus die ontwikkelingen ook van slimme steden. Als je dan bijvoorbeeld luistert naar hoe bijvoorbeeld Tom Kikkert dat eerder heeft aangegeven. We gaan steeds meer naar een ervaring toe dat het winkelen wordt. Steeds meer winkels worden ook met elkaar verbonden op die manier. Hoe zie je dan de toekomst voor jouw eigen winkel nog voor je als jij gecombineerd moet gaan worden met bijvoorbeeld een schoenenwinkel en een bioscoop en misschien een lokale horecaonderneming?
Nou, het is terecht, de consument is heel erg, heeft behoefte aan een beleving. Het is niet meer sec, saai voor een paar schoenen naar de binnenstad, maar de consument wil worden vermaakt. Het is echt, ze trekken er vaak een dagje vooruit. Dat is ook de reden waarom sinds 1,5, 2 jaar alle zondagen open zijn in Enschede. Er worden veel evenementen georganiseerd. En hoe moeten wij combineren? In 2014 hebben wij al besloten om te starten met een webshop. Dat is met ruim 35.000 artikelen in je winkel best wel een opgave als je het allemaal als zelfstandig kleine ondernemer zelf moet doen. Maar goed, niks is onmogelijk. Dus we zijn er gewoon aan begonnen. En in 2018 zijn wij een nieuw platform gestart. En die is ook geautomatiseerd en gekoppeld met alle kassa's en alle prijssystemen. Nogmaals, de consument zoekt een beleving. En dat wil zeggen dat je nu harder dan ooit je best moet doen om de klant op het moment dat hij zich thuis gaat oriënteren en jouw digitale online catalogus erop naslaat, wederom kiest voor de Bertus Workel in de binnenstad, omdat hij daar de laatste keer goed geholpen is, maar daar ook een heel prettig gevoel aan over heeft gehouden. Maar dat kun je als ondernemer niet alleen doen. De beleving van de consument, hoe die de stad inkwam, of hij zijn auto en fiets prettig kwijt kon, hoe het winkelklimaat was, of er veel verkeer in de binnenstad aanwezig was, of dat heeft geïrriteerd. Die hele beleving is belangrijk voor ons ondernemers allemaal. Hoe ervaart een consument zijn bezoek aan de binnenstad? En het heeft natuurlijk alles te maken met hoe jij je profileert als winkel en je uiterste best doet voor die klant, zodat hij weer komt. Maar de beleving in die binnenstad, buiten die winkels om, is zeker net zo belangrijk. Is er voldoende parkeerplaats op afstand, op normale afstand te vinden? Sinds kort is er in de binnenstad weer en bij de scooters. Dat is ook erg prettig voor het winkelend klimaat, voor onze gasten. En we hebben natuurlijk niet alleen maar Nederlandse gasten, maar ook Duitse gasten.
Dit gaat uiteraard weer over de stad, hoe die eruit gezien, de stad van de toekomst. En toevallig is het ook het bruggetje, denk ik, naar het volgende onderwerp. Dus als je nog even aan de lijn kan blijven hangen, dan gaan we langzaamaan door naar het volgende onderwerp. Dank in ieder geval tot wat je tot nu toe over dit onderwerp hebt gedeeld. Erg interessant. For me, it's now time to switch back to English to summarize what we quickly discussed with Nicole. This is the challenging part. So Nicole is the owner of a store called Bertus Workel, which once started as a really specialized party store for Carnival, a big party here in the Netherlands, but also abroad. But they've noticed that the market demand for Carnival and party pieces declined, so they adapted their business to also fulfill that in the creative business. And she reinstates that consumers are now looking for an experience not solely confined to the transaction of buying a product. And this is not only limited to the city or the store where you buy it, it's the city in general. It's ample parking spots, it's the culture that the city has, the vibrantness, trees in the streets, for example. So the shopping climate is really important in this. So stores on their own cannot do this alone. They need to collaborate, not only amongst each other as stores, but also as organizations. Thank you, Nicole. Moving back to you in a moment. This is also a really nice bridge to the next topic, which is about the future of the stores in general. So let's roll the video for topic number 2. Moving on to the next segment. In the previous part, we discussed what the store of the future will look like. But of course, all of those new stores will gather once again in the city center and will cause that city center to change as well. Tom, you're talking about this subject as well. What, in your opinion, will the city center of the future look like?
If we look at the past 50, 40, maybe 50 years, what you see was always growth. The retail became bigger, became better, became making more money. Right now, we all see that the retail have to change something. We have to reinvent the city center. The problem is, we have to reinvent the city center, but because of 50 years of growth, we created a lot of systems, structures, boundaries that protecting the system like it is nowadays. So it's very hard for creative people to do something different than it's done before because of the systems, because of the rules, because of the structures. So if we really want to change something, we have to get rid of a lot of these boundaries, a lot of these systems, and a lot of these structures, because if creative people have to make a company within those rules and structures, it's probably a company that already exists.
So your idea would be complete clean slate, a white piece of paper and a pen, and start drawing from scratch without any rules and boundaries.
Exactly, and maybe no paper. We have to trust people that are creative. You cannot make the future of retail, of city centers on paper. You cannot do it because you are smarter than others. You have to let it do by creative people and let them do the things they do in the city centers.
So the best plan, according to you, would be no plan at all? Just let it be a fluid process?
Exactly, and trust people that are creative. And I believe that if we are starting with creating rules and boundaries and papers, I think we create more problems than we solve problems. So I think we have to trust them and to let them make something different.
So you've heard it. We need to just let everything go, all of the existing structures, and start from scratch. This must sound like music to your ears at Create Tomorrow, all of kinds of creative people that can make that decision. Now, of course, you are here from, a policy perspective from the government. That means that there are...
That's not all we do, but yes.
But there are laws, there are rules, and partially you also make them, sadly. is this attainable? Can we do this? Can we just let it go?
Yeah, well, I agree with Tom in the way that that I think it's a really it's difficult to create room for creativeness and innovation when you have a lot of rules, which we have. But those rules also serve a purpose, and because it makes that our city centers are very compact and that we have, as we say in Dutch, gezellig. I think in English it's gregarious.
Cozy, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
City centers. And when you look outside of the Netherlands, well, not all, for example, Belgium or France, not all city centers look like that. And that's the main reason for that is government policy. So I agree with Tom that it's important to create room for creativeness and innovation, but I also think that those rules serve a purpose and they give us the city centers that we have now.
So perhaps we need to have completely new rules that steer into the direction of the city of the future.
Well, I don't know if we need new rules. I think the rules, the main part of the rules is very good and it serves the purpose, but I think it's good to look for ways how we can create more room for innovation and creativeness.
I also believe that we have a question from a viewer about this subject, so let's move to our question desk.
We have a question here. Does the trend of smart cities lead to connected cities? And what are the benefits of the evolution?
So, does this development lead also to connected cities? Once again, I'm putting it out here.
Well, it would be nice to answer this in connection with the reaction of Tom. I like that Tom is shaking the tree which cities are. It gives new insights, it gives brand ideas a possibility, but at the other ones, another thing, what good was, you can keep good or making better. So hospitality is important, and hospitality is meeting people. There are three main principles of hospitality in cities and in shops and in streets. That's the welcome feeling, the inviting feeling, that's attention, looking people, have the connection and building loyalty, and that is comfort. You're feeling okay. So are you feeling served? Is something which is normal in hospitality, was not normal in retail, and this blurring and blending gives opportunity of doing that. When you look to a city as the hardware, the identity, the hardcore, the fabric, you look to the software, the programming of policymakers, of entrepreneurs, of researchers. You look to the orgware, all good governance to realize that, where my colleague is pointing on. And you look to the shareware, the social media, the digital intelligence, all kind of online meetings. Then you see that people can choose, will I visit this city or that city? Not only of having a good time or buying things, but also meeting people. So tracking other people, community thinking, the vlogs and blogs thing, all kind of things where connection and this digital area gives possibility of meeting and greeting and inviting environment. So the tell and sell thing, that's history. I agree also with the shop owner, very inspiring, that instead of tell and sell, it's invite and engage. Online, offline, in communities. So all those flows of people and information, the digital area helps in finding good things, good experiences.
And connecting that. So
connecting that and be part of the experience, not only looking to it, but invite and engage. And there the shop owner has a possibility of making new products and services. So the hospitality and retail in the city could be a plus, plus, plus.
So indeed, a smart city does give the opportunity for a connected city. Thank you for answering that. I believe that there's also another question from one of the viewers.
We have a question here. Let me check. How can cities be more accommodating to both native as migrant populations? And how can the data and technology make cities and citizens smarter?
Ooh, that's a complex question. It's almost like a layered question with two different parts.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a first reply to that question?
Yeah, well, the first thing I think about is the psychology of spatial planning.
Anthropology again.
Well, yeah, yes, I love it. um, because when you think about spatial planning, you can think along the lines of finances. How expensive is that bench or the other one? But you can also think about the way the spatial planning makes you feel, and if it makes you feel at home. So the first part of the question, how can a city accommodate both native inhabitants and migrants feel at home? I think spatial planning has a lot of opportunities that are not used, most of the time are not used. For example, when you design a square, you can also think along these lines, and then maybe you discover another design that accommodates more the feeling at home of more groups than maybe like the general population.
So an internationally inspired garden in the middle of a city center, for example, or
For example, or maybe you put a bench and some chairs around it so you can meet people and maybe start conversations there, or maybe give some more room to international cuisine, or there are a lot of possibilities.
okay, but then there's also that smart and data part of the question, and can that also be used in this situation? Do you have an idea on that, or perhaps you, Michiel?
Sure. Yeah, the melting pot of people, ideas, money, goods, and services where city are dependent on. These digital possibilities give opportunities. For instance, when this foreigner or inhabitant or visitor is looking for this location, like Enschede, you have festivals, events, the orgware and software of the city where people can meet. But a digital travel assistant which help you to find the right places, the right meaning, the right people, exclusive possibilities. Nowadays, this afternoon, we have a dynamic pricing, and for a cheap price, you can find this on the marketplace or in the shop. It could be very personal. We are in marketing terms from segmentation in groups to the individual. Thanks to algorithms and artificial intelligence, we know what people want and how, when they are prepared and open up their data, we can serve them on a fantastic way. So we are now doing research for the hospitality sector in making a digital assistant who helps you in finding people, places, services, event agenda, all kinds of things what could be interesting for this journey meeting. So we are so enthusiastic this digital area gives information, meaning, but the visitor is responsible for, security, safety, and what is public and what is not public. So I like this finding out and this shaking this tree where Tom is talking about, but I'm also very curious to know what the owner of the shop is thinking about this creative process, because you are also selling products to be created yourself. So the inviting and engaging is starting in your shop. Do you agree with that?
Well, we're going to move to that part later on.
Sorry.
You're very eager, but if we're going to
over.
make it like a very interactive show, it's going to be impossible to manage anymore.
Okay.
I do hear that we have a question from somebody who's viewing at this moment that concerns the approachability of the city physically for people with, for example, disabilities. How can we guarantee that the store or the city center of the future is not only accessible for native people, migrant people, but also for people with disabilities? Well, will that get an extra focus in the development of new city centers? I'm already looking to you.
Yeah, you may. Well, we had an intern on this specific topic, inclusiveness, a while back. And she did some research on it, and she posed a way of thinking about it, that you might start thinking about this spatial inclusiveness by starting to think from the people with the disability. Because, for example, if a person in a wheelchair can enter a store, a person that can walk into a store you can still enter it when a person in a wheelchair can, but the other way around you can't.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting way to think about this. I think since city centers become more and more important socially, meeting people from outside of your bubble, for example, I think it becomes a more important topic. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that answer. Also, thank you very much for sharing your perspectives. It also means that we sadly need to move on to the next part, which is a really nice thing, because this isn't everything that is to be said about the developments of city centers. So I really look forward to the creative people that are watching, to make some solutions to the challenges. This is the moment, however, to move on to Nicole, who is still joining us via a video connection as a local entrepreneur. Michiel already had a nice question for Nicole. So we move back to Dutch again. I'll try to write with what you're saying, quickly summarize it in English at the end, and then hopefully at the end we still have some time for the last theme. But Nicole, fijn dat je er nog steeds bent. We gaan nu weer lekker even in het Nederlands doen. Michiel, ik ga jou gewoon direct even de beurt geven. Wat was nou precies de vraag die je aan Nicole wilde stellen?
Nicole, Tom gaf een korte inleiding in het Engels, waar hij het had over er zijn eigenlijk geen grenzen meer en laat creativiteit loslaten op die stad. Alles kan, alles mag.
Ja.
De proeftuin van de stad. Dat begint bij bijvoorbeeld een winkel zoals jullie, want jullie hebben verstand van creativiteit, dat heb je ook verteld. Jullie geven een invite and engage mogelijkheid, want je kan bij jullie spullen kopen die iets met artist, kunst en meaningmaking, met betekenisgeven te maken. De creatieve kant lokken jullie uit. Ik vroeg me af wat jij ervan vindt, naar aanleiding van wat Tom vertelde over hoe kan die stad creatief worden en zichzelf opnieuw uitvinden na de COVID-periode nu en een tomorrow creëren, een toekomst creëren die ertoe doet voor nieuwe en bestaande doelgroepen.
Ja, nou het deel van Tom heb ik helaas niet kunnen horen. Ik had al even een melding gemaakt, maar dat gaat waarschijnlijk straks beter. Een binnenstad moet vernieuwen. En de binnenstad van Enschede is daar eigenlijk al heel goed mee aan het werk. Er is een beleid er is afgelopen week een groen ambitieplan gepresenteerd. Er wordt op dit moment aan alle kanten buiten die binnenstad, nog binnen de singles, worden er heel veel woningen gebouwd. Denk het aan de Kop, een gebied in Enschede, Centrum Kwadraat, bij de Molenstraat, Boddenkamp. Enschede zorgt ervoor dat de binnenstad, de ondernemers, de winkels niet alleen afhankelijk zijn van de mensen die naar die binnenstad moeten komen, of vanuit toerisme gezien, maar creëert op dit moment klanten die afhankelijk zijn van die binnenstad als een soort van winkelwarenhuis. Dat zie je ook aan op plekken buiten die singles, in wijkcentra. Die zijn voorzienend voor de mensen die daar wonen. En dat wordt op dit moment ook door Enschede gecreëerd, doordat ze veel meer woonunits bouwen in die binnenstad. En dat is voor ons belangrijk. Zoals ik al noemde, er is een groen ambitieplan. Scooters zijn vorig jaar geweerd. Fietsers mogen overal zijn, maar collega vertelde net ook dat het verblijf, dus het faciliteren van mogelijkheden tot spelen van kinderen die je meeneemt naar de stad, zitplekken. Het verblijf moet kunnen worden verlengd. En ja, ik vind dat Enschede al een heel goed eind op weg is om gewoon definitief permanent die bezoekers ook in die binnenstad te houden.
Spelen daar Gochbot-festivals en het Makers-festival, Co-Maker, waar technologie, de identiteit van Enschede als uitvinderstad, maar ook creativiteit bij bewoners en bezoekers, spelen die een belangrijke rol in die creativiteit, ook voor jou als winkelier?
Ja, evenementen algemeen spelen daarbij een grote rol. Het is natuurlijk heel belangrijk om de studenten die we hier opleiden te kunnen laten blijven in onze stad. Dat is voor Enschede nog wel eens moeilijk. Veel studenten die hier worden opgeleid vertrekken naar het westen of elders. Daar zijn plannen voor en daar wordt ook hard aan gewerkt. Gokbot, maar ook allerlei andere evenementen als Muziek in de Straat, Winterwonderland, het Makersfestival. Vroeger hadden we nog een heel mooi ander muziekevenement. De Proof Eat. Allemaal hartstikke belangrijk om die reuring, Eelco Ehrenberg, ons vorige wethouder binnenstad, die zei het al. Eigenlijk moet je er naar streven één groot pretpark te worden. Nu vinden wij wel wat binnen de winkeliersvereniging van het woord pretpark. Maar de strekking van het verhaal is dat er reuring in die binnenstad is. Dus ja, belangrijk. En die creativiteit, die hebben we met elkaar nodig. En dat is op allerlei gebieden, op techniekgebied, op muziekgebied. Iedereen heeft zijn voorkeuren. Dus hoe diverser, hoe mooier.
We moeten daarin in samenwerken. Dus dankjewel
Ja.
Nicole voor het delen van je perspectief erop. Helaas moeten we door naar het volgende deel. En ik denk ook dat dit het moment is waarop we de afscheid van jou moeten nemen. Nogmaals, dank voor dat je hier aanwezig wilde zijn. Ik ga het nog weer vertalen in het Engels, hopelijk zonder problemen. Dankjewel voor je aanwezigheid.
Dankjewel.
Dankjewel.
Moving back to English again, trying to summarize what we just discussed with some good questions from Michiel, was focused on now Bertus Workel, the store that Nicole is the owner of, is a creative store. And we are, of course, expecting stores to also work on shaping the future city. So how can a creative store take the lead in that? There are some great examples that are already happening, and one of the examples is policy by the municipality in Enschede called Green Initiatives, which creates new housing in the city center, which creates new customers that live in the city center and are therefore dependent on the city center. So by creating more living spaces in the city center, people are therefore living more and experiencing more in the center. A nice quote that was used, which made us laugh, is comparing it to being an amusement park, almost kind of setting. There needs to be excitement in the city center. Well, sadly we need to move on because we only have 12 more minutes left in this part, which moves us on to the last topic, topic number 3. The third and final topic of this session is about logistics and delivery of services and products that we buy. Tom, the honor is to you, the last segment. What do you think the logistics and delivery system in the future will look like?
The strange thing is, when we are looking 20 years ago, there was already a supermarket driving through the streets to give you the products you needed. That's almost the same situation right now. So there are a lot of post-order companies that are driving through the streets and give you the packages you needed. So there is actually not changing a lot. It's almost the same as a couple of years ago. Only technology makes new possibilities. So maybe in the future we get a drone to give you the package you need, or maybe we can see a self-driving car that gives you the package you need. But the system where we're all part of is not changing that much, I think.
So the system, the idea of people, no change at all, only the way that it's being transported. So only flashing new drones, that will be the future, but it will still be a crate with stuff being delivered to your door.
In the end, it will almost be the same, I think.
Nice way to nuance it, but Tom was very clear. There is no big change in that experience. Are you surprised by that statement, or do you expect hordes of drones flying through the city center in the future?
I disagree with Tom.
Oh, that's interesting.
When we look to cities like Utrecht and Amsterdam, real big cities in the Netherlands, but also Enschede, there is a kind of shameless on delivery. When people work at daytime and one person is at that big home where several families live, each day the logistic supplier comes on online packages delivering. Ring on, can you, it's from Mrs. A, she's not here, can you have it, can you handle it? Or when it's not possible, hand it over in front of the front door. So cities are, especially where cities are people are living very congested, like in inner cities, we have now a problem, especially when this shameless on delivery and this logistic power, which is now really changing cities, it gives arguments that this is not the way where the tomorrow will be exciting.
But is that then, because we will still want to order stuff and we will still want to have that delivered to our door, is then the solution more expensive technologies to increase the cost of the delivery? Or should we look at, for example, policy riders that forbid people from actually having stuff delivered to their door during certain time windows, which forces them to go to stores? Is that another solution to the problem?
Well, I do see that there are some problems with also with traditional transport already, with big trucks, for example, in city centers. So it's already a problem. The thing I was thinking about is that not so much whether the system is changing, but what I see in our city centers right now is that due to COVID, all city centers are looking at smart solutions to be online, to be the city center that they already are, but online. But that's really hard. So I haven't seen one city center that manages to use smart solutions and the digital options to be a city center, but also a digital one. So that's maybe it's a different.
So there's still two things living amongst or aside each other. So we've still using the old-fashioned way of having store, whilst we try to combine it with online practices, and that still isn't working in harmony yet.
Yes.
So then, what would be your solution to that?
Well, this is a wicked problem, and the biggest mistake you make is solve it within 1 minute. You have first
people have an entire day to do this tomorrow.
Yes, I'm very interested in
look
those
to the
ideas.
emotions, the arguments, the motivations of the visitor, of the buyer, of the people who wants to go to the city to meet instead of buying. So I don't know if drones are the solution to deliver just on time, just on the right place. It could be part of the solution. I think it will be a mixed solution. We have also to behave ourselves in a different way. Now it's when I shop online for the shoes of my son and I buy three pair of shops because I don't know if it fits okay. And the return means that 2 packages will go back. I disturb environment. I'm not sustainable. And part of the returns will not be sold again. So on thinking about sustainability and circular economy, we have a wicked problem. And I like wicked problems because then we have to do research with this team of all kinds of parties, entrepreneurs, policymakers, scientists, but especially the inhabitant, the visitor and the entrepreneur which meets each other.
Yeah. And as a province, we like to position ourselves as a partner of the city center. So we work together with all the people that already work in the city center. So we also see that we don't have the answer to that. So we look at all what our city centers are doing, and we try to inspire them, or they inspire us, and we share their insights. But I hope that joining Create Tomorrow also brings us some new insights to share with our city centers that help create the future city center.
Well, that's maybe that's a nice moment to now start rounding off. Also, having discussed the subject, do you have any clear moments or things that you would like to share about the matter of transport?
Look to local heroes. We have entrepreneurs, we have streets where people who have shops work together in transport themes and sustainability, and look to these local heroes. In fact, our school, university, and another school, Windesheim at Zwolle, are working together with the province to look to local heroes, which could be guiding for other people to transform to another era, to be, a future shop who gives an answer on this wicked problem.
So once again, giving the power to the local business and looking at the best practices.
Looking, observing what works and what not. Yeah.
And I think also Tom gave in a previous video, he gave a really important advice to not be afraid to start from scratch and let go of the systems that we already have. So I think that's an interesting advice.
And invite new ideas, students. You are a student from University of Twente. Ask them, invite them to bring in new, fresh ideas. because we look backwards, we look to the future, but we have all kind of boundaries in our head. So the solution is also depending on how can we invite students to this wicked problem.
Yeah.
So we're hearing it. We need to be creative. We need to have new solutions. We need to have a clean slate. Not even have a clean slate. Just draw into the whiteness of your mind. Try to think of new ideas, but don't be afraid to already look at successes that are already here in place. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective as a lector, and thank you for sharing your perspective from a governmental level from the province of Overijssel. Thank you, Nicole, for joining us. And Nicole, sadly, she has already left us. And thanks, of course, for Tom to meeting us with me earlier this week to record the session. Thanks for watching. Thanks for asking all of your questions. Good luck with the challenges and, of course, the rest of the sessions. Have a good day.